this up.
There's nothing to stop here.
Hey,
Check if the device
there
is
you
on
go.
your home
Yeah,
Wi-Fi
shut up,
network.
babe. We're live right now, coming from my dining room. And today I have a special guest on, which we're going to see how this goes. This might be something we're going to continue to do, which we both believe that many moms and dads and parents could benefit from. Well, we're trying to protect our rights as parents as well as just citizens of Illinois and citizens of this country. There's a lot of misinformation out there, generally about what's happening in this country, about why things are the way they are. And Dave Shestokas, he is, I guess the best way to put it is a Constitution attorney. He is also an accomplished author. He's worked on some pretty big campaigns. One of them, a legal campaign. You might know the guy, President Donald Trump. He was one of his attorneys, advisors.
Yeah, I was one of the attorneys during on the team in Pennsylvania from late October till the day before Thanksgiving in Pennsylvania primarily. And then after that, for the National Republican Senatorial Committee in Georgia for the runoff elections there. And it actually dates back to 2016 when I did things for Trump Rubio in Broward County, Florida. And we've been involved in elections in any number of ways, not the least of which is all the way dating back to 1990 when I was a Republican nominee for the United States Congress.
Okay,
Here in Illinois.
And so also going back in your history of accomplishments, things you've done, one of them I find most interesting is you're native Lithuanian.
Well, I have Lithuanian heritage.
Right.
I'm Native American.
Native, there you go.
I'm natural born citizen.
Yeah, natural citizen, sorry. But you helped work on the Lithuanian Constitution when they went through...
Following the fall of the Soviet Union, there were, of course, for over 70 years, more or less than 3 generations, Lithuania was among the countries that was occupied by the Soviet Union, i.e. the Russians. And following the fall, there was in communist society, actually there's not a lot for lawyers to do. A good chunk of what lawyers do is kind of figure out who owns what, in terms of distribution. But in the communist world where the government owns everything, there are no laws about private property or the rule of law. And so following the fall of the Soviet Union, there have been 3 generations of Lithuanians that had grown up under the communist system, and it was important for them to have some input in establishing their new constitution from people with that kind of experience. And there was lawyers actually from all over the world of Lithuanian heritage that went and assisted in that transition period from a communist society to a free society. So that was an extraordinarily emotional experience because all my grandparents were from Lithuania, and so I was blessed, and it did a lot for my Lithuanian language skills back when I was over there.
Polish up on those.
Yeah,
Dave. So if you can just briefly touch on the story of your family, what had happened. I've heard this story, and I'd like it to be shared with you of how. So the things we're facing in this country now have been done before or attempted on this country back in Reagan was able to stop it. But this has happened throughout the country. So anyone that has like a European background, Eastern European mainly, they've seen all this before. And Dave has an interesting family story
Sure. Around it, well, certainly I deal relatively quickly with both my grandfathers. Both my grandfathers were Lithuanian. Both had been conscripted to go into the Russian army, and the Russians in the places where they occupied, they frequently took young men away and put them in the army. And if they weren't Russian, they were treated obviously very, very poorly. But
they were made to be in their army and made to follow what they were told to do, even though they were an occupier of the land.
Exactly.
Right, okay.
Exactly. The Russians and the Soviets were occupiers, but they conscripted people from Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, Poland, wherever they were able to scoop up young men and put them into the Red Army. Both my grandfathers had been conscripted, and they left to do that, to avoid that. But among the more poignant situations was my one grandmother, Barbara Shestokas, who was one of 11 children in Lithuania around the turn of the century. They owned there was a family farm that they owned, and so several of her brothers were farmers on the family farm. So consequently, they were businessmen. But there was a couple brothers that were actually priests. There was a couple sisters that were nuns, and additionally a school teacher.
So good families, good people.
Good people, yeah.
Good people.
Religious, educated, educators, and business people.
Mm-hmm.
And as things were deteriorating around the Soviet Empire or the Russian Empire, as they were being invaded, and my grandmother, when she was 15, the family put her on a boat to come to America. There was some extended family in the Boston area that they sent her to, but in the interim, another brother and another sister also made it out, but the other 8 that remained behind, which is why they sent the younger children away. They were slaughtered. They were killed by the Russians and by the communists, and because they were educated, because they were business people, because they were religious people,
and they were going to go against the fascist control of the Communist Party was socialist, right?
Yes, socialist, Soviet Socialist Republic. Yes.
Yeah, right. If you didn't know what that stood for, but it's communism at the end of the day, right?
Right.
So socialism is just a polite way of saying communism.
Yes.
I mean, at the end of the day,
it's the short step before that, and of course, as the Soviet Union existed, all the various components of the Soviet Union were largely referred to as the Lithuanian Soviet Socialist Republic, the Latvian Soviet Socialist Republic, the Russian Soviet Socialist Republic. Those were all elements of that. But what they did was they actually exterminated people that they couldn't control, people who had education, who were religious, people, the best of society. Otherwise, they actually exterminated them. So 8 of my grandmother's brothers and sisters were killed by them. And my grandmother's a special story as well, because she became an American. She was born in September, but she made us celebrate her birthday on the 4th of July, because that was the anniversary of her naturalization. And when Grandma became an American citizen, that's when she considered herself to have truly been born. And so we always celebrated her birthday on the 4th of July, the anniversary of her citizenship.
People who have been away, who have lived under communism and socialism, have done anything and risked it all just to come to the United States of America. And now we have, many people, part of a generation who believes that's the answer forward to, right the wrongs of the United States of America. And a lot of times I like to tell them, point to me one country that doesn't have blood on their flag. I mean, if we're going to have honest conversations, let's start having honest conversations. You're not going to find one country in this world that doesn't have blood on its flag. So if we're going to use social issues to try to change our society, I mean, that's just silly. But unfortunately, a lot of these people are also being, they're victims of propaganda. And I don't have any hate in my heart for them, because you only know what you know. And unless you've had a story like Dave, his family, you're going to get it. And I have a lot of Polish friends. I grew up by the Midway area, right? It's the best way I can describe it. It has a strong Southside Polish community. As a matter of fact, and I have permission to talk about this. My wife says I can talk about it. My first love was a Polish girl. And I heard so much about the atrocities that her family had faced, in getting away from Poland, because it was Russian occupied. And they fled that area, that country, to come here. And now many Polish people are kind of like, hey, man, we did all this to make a life here, to get away from it. Now it's coming here. But so what we're going to talk about, a couple of things Dave and I wanted to do is we want to kind of talk about the seats we're running for, right? So not only is David a Constitution expert, an Illinois Constitution expert, but he's also running for Attorney General. Thank you for doing that for us. It's a good, principled man that understands the Constitution, and it's something that I run into. But I'm not going to make this, about me right now. What I'm going to say is I'm, running for U.S. Congress, and there's a lot of people who think, Jack, well, you're a candidate, is there something you could do? Well, I'm actually just a candidate, so no, I'm doing the best I can with what's available to me. When I get elected, right, into the U.S. Congress, people say, well, you got to work on election reform and things like that. Well, the problem with that is I would be a part of the federal government, not the state of Illinois. And because of the 10th Amendment, you don't want feds involved with state affairs. Is that pretty accurate?
That's pretty accurate. And actually, the U.S. Constitution itself gives the authority to conduct elections and to regulate elections to the states, with a couple of amendment provisions, like the provision, the 19th Amendment regarding women voting, regarding the 15th Amendment, and the you cannot discriminate on voting relative to race.
But that's a guidelines, bumpers, right?
Those
Not
are
directives, just bumpers.
just
like,
bumpers.
Don't do that. Okay?
Just bumpers. But basically, in say Article 2, Section 1, Clause 2 indicates that the electors for the President of the United States shall be chosen as provided by the legislatures of the states.
Well, that's an interesting word we just said, legislature, which
Yes.
I want to make our audience here right now pretty aware of. But go ahead, finish your statement, and then we're good.
Well, that's one place where the Constitution, U.S. Constitution, directly gives authority to the states over elections. And anytime the U.S. Congress goes outside those bumpers, as you said, they are acting unconstitutionally and depriving the states of the appropriate authority that they have.
So who keeps, when something like that was to happen, right? So the United States Congress, right? That's
Right.
435
Right.
members. Each state has different amounts because on their population size, right?
That's correct.
Or how they're, well, not amounts, but how they're, amounts of.
They're apportioned according
Proportion, it says like 700,000, give or take, right?
Right.
Now, when they go out of line, who's the group that keeps everyone accountable? So if Congress is in a powerful, position, I'm trying to be as lame as possible.
Sure.
Who is the one that will hold them accountable?
Well, there are various elements, of course, depending upon the issue regarding that. But certainly, if the Congress were to infringe on the authority of the state of Illinois to conduct its elections as it sees fit, then in fact the authority to contest that, the direct authority to contest that, is the Attorney General of the state of Illinois, who is the lawyer for, not the governor. Okay.
Wait, hold on. Wait, it's not for the governor, because I thought the Attorney General works for the governor.
No, that's
a misrepresentation of the position.
That's a misrepresentation of the position. Yeah, these are things that we're going to talk about. But yeah, the Attorney General. There's two things that govern the authority of the Attorney General of Illinois, and that is the Illinois Constitution, Article 5 in the Illinois Constitution. Creates the office of the Attorney General, and then additionally there's something called the Illinois Attorney General Act. The Attorney General Act actually outlines 15 specific duties of the Attorney General, but the very first one says the Attorney General of Illinois shall be the attorney for the people.
Not the governor?
No, not the governor. Go figure.
That's strange.
Yeah, go figure. For the people of the state of Illinois, and. Some folks are watching, I know you know this, but I'm attorney for the Illinois Conservative Union, and we have a lawsuit against the Illinois State Board of Elections, where all we're doing is asking them to follow the law relating to keeping the voter rolls clean. And I mean, essentially we're doing that. And
that shouldn't be a partisan issue.
No, it shouldn't be.
Right. Partisan meaning like one. Unfortunately, we're a two-party system, if we like it or not. We're Democrat, Republican, some independents, and then everyone else that falls in between it don't really carry any weight. So when I say partisan, it shouldn't matter what party you identify with as a politician. Everyone should be on the same page to say, okay, we want to have fair and honest elections. However, in Illinois, that's not the case.
No, it's not the case, because some great group of gals went to see what they could do about keeping the elections clean from the Illinois Conservative Union, led particularly by my close friend Carol Davis,
Great woman. By the way, the more I get to know her, the more I like her.
Yeah, Carol is fantastic, but she's got a great team that works with her, Loretta Suave and Jan Shaw, Nancy Hayes. There's some great gals working with Carol, but they went to see what they could do about doing there's some enforcement provisions in the law, National Voter Registration Act, that allows citizens to enforce the law. And they went to execute their rights or their abilities under the law. And the Illinois State Board of Elections says, no, we're just not gonna do that. So ultimately we had to sue them. And what found out was one of the motivating factors for me to run for Attorney General was all we're asking them to do is to follow the law. The Attorney General office is representing the Board of Elections. And his office says, no, we don't have to follow the law. As opposed to saying to the Board of Elections that we are we're the lawyers for the people, and so let's sit down and see what we can do so that you can fulfill the law, and we can take care of the citizens.
Who holds the Attorney General accountable? The people.
The people, yeah.
And so unlike other positions in government, you're actually elected in.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, so how many, we got a lot of people asking questions. I'm trying to follow them. How many people right now knew that you can actually vote for your Illinois Attorney General? And how many have or known anything about the Attorney General or the position of the Attorney General? If some of you can just comment there, we're kind of watching as we're going here. Good morning, afternoon to everyone. Amber, see you've been commenting. Sherry, hello, I see you're watching. Maria, my eyes are starting to get
your vision's better than mine,
buddy. I hit 44 and I was like, yikes. Julie, yep. I was not familiar with the vote. Yep. Sherry's a beast. Sherry is a beast. She's a workhorse. Hi, Sherry. Good afternoon. Yeah, no, she's definitely. I know we can't share this. I'll download it and upload it to my own page, and I'll start sending it out to all the other pages. Good morning, Rocky.
Hi,
Good
Rocky.
afternoon. We know Rocky. Natalie, she's great. I'll tell you about her offline. She's a phenomenal person. Vote for selected officials for the general election. Yeah, people only pay attention to general election. They have to stop doing that. I'm gonna be honest with you. We have to start paying attention to our local election. And honestly, government starts from the bottom up, and that's what a lot of people have failed to understand. I mean, I'm guilty as charged, right? I didn't get involved in this. I stayed out of all this until I started looking around saying, something ain't right here.
I just while we're talking about this subject, I mentioned that particular case when it came to my attention directly that the Attorney General was defending the Board of Elections in their illegal actions.
Because they're supposed to defend the people, as you said.
They're supposed to defend the people.
Okay, but that's not what's happening here.
And that's compounded by, that's my particular experience. But of course, Senator Bailey has been involved in any number of litigations with the governor.
Senator Bailey, just so if you don't know, is running. He's a gubernatorial candidate, Republican. He's a state senator, which we're going to get into explaining what the difference is, what that position is. But I think you'll kind of pick up on what a senator's role is by what Dave's going to say here. Go ahead.
Well, and actually, Senator Bailey's conduct that I was talking about at the moment was as a private citizen, because he was suing the governor related to mandates, related to a series of.
So he was a private citizen that sued, not under the seat of senator,
right,
but just as a citizen, like our viewers,
like
right
everybody online and otherwise. Yeah, no, that's and of course his primary attorney is a very good guy that does a lot of commentary, Tom DeVore. But the Attorney General, and they were complaining about what the governor was doing, but the office that was in fact defending the governor, opposing Senator Bailey, was the Attorney General's office.
So he wasn't in fact working for the people; he was working for the governor.
He represented for the governor. Here's a quick example. Of course, they filed the cases down in Clay County, which is where Senator Bailey lives, and where the effect of the various orders was taking place. But the Attorney General filed a motion in Clay County to bring the case to Sangamon County, to take it away from the local judge where this was being affected and put it in with the judges who are what? Most friendly? Sangamon is Springfield.
In their pocket.
Yeah, where the judges are most friendly to the governor, because those are the judges there. So they took the state, or the Attorney General for the state of Illinois, who was elected independently as an independent constitutional officer, does not owe anything to the governor, took those cases and brought them to a friendly judge. And those kind of things is among the reasons that I decided to do this, because this is not how that office should be conducted.
But okay, but that also brings something else up to point: how important it is to know who you're voting for when the judges come up for election.
That's exactly right. The other day I was in Springfield, I brought that issue up. That's something else that people don't understand, that we are unaware of, that in addition to everybody else, we actually elect the judges here. And and there's often candidates nights, or there's judges, judicial forums or whatever. And while judges, people that are candidates for judge or judges, have limits on judicial ethics, the kind of things that they can comment about, it's fair game to ask them, I don't know, what's your judicial philosophy when it comes to protecting individual rights? You know, you should put them on hot seats where they belong.
Okay, so when and we were actually, you and I, we both spoke at an event in Crete, Illinois, and there was a judge there.
Good friend, 30-year friend, Art Smigelski. Judge Smigelski is an associate judge in Will County.
And I remember when he was speaking to the audience, he was very limited what he could say. However, you can ask these judges their take. And the most important question, I believe, and you just said it, I agree with you, is what is your position on individual liberties? Here's the reason why individual liberties are so important. There is the current administration in D.C. has been actively socially engineering group identity, right? So instead of an individual identity, because, and this is a quote you gave to me from someone you received it from out of the most if you say you support minorities, then the most, I'm paraphrasing this one.
Let me take a shot.
Yeah, go ahead. You do it. You got this one.
Shot. Yeah, in fact, if the situation is that the smallest minority is in fact the individual.
Right. So that's why it's so important for minority rights is the individual, and group rights. The weeds of the group rights is socialism, aka communism, because what winds up happening is you must conform to this group, and whatever you believe in come up with. I mean, we build our thinking and our philosophies off our experience as individuals as we live. That is out the window if they get their way. You're going to have to conform with group thinking. So let's just say an example of group would be the LGBTQ, and then whatever else comes after that, group thinking, okay? The problem is do you think that everyone in that community feels the same? No. And that's why it's so important to have individual rights, because there are plenty of people that are in that community that are not subscribing to some of the nonsense that they're trying to push. And I believe, in fact, and I actually know a couple of people who happen to actually be gay, don't support the sexualization of children because they see the perversion in it, right? But because they're trying to change our society into group identity, those people's voices will be canceled. So it's uber important that the judge, now here's why, let me tie this together. In court, so you have the different powers and they're separated, right? The judicial system is the final word at the end of the day on what's going to happen. You can create laws, but if the judicial system, correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to interpret the law.
That's correct.
And if it's their interpretation is not exactly of what they were trying to do, the legislatures were trying to do, or senators were trying to do, they will in fact either rule upon it or not, because they are localized.
They are localized. I can give you a short example. I did in fact file a court case on behalf of Standing in the Word Ministries in Morris, Illinois. In Grundy
Natalie
County.
had one. 2 seats open up, Supreme Court, so rare. I guess we'll
Yes.
jump on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, and regarding Standing in the Word Ministries in Morris, in Grundy County, Illinois, and we filed suit on behalf of them. And what we did, in fact, in that regard, was in fact file suit to oppose the limitations on religious exercise that were involved in the governor's orders. But what we did is we sued the sheriff and we sued the state's attorney, not the governor, because the sheriff and the state's attorney are in charge of executing or enforcing these orders.
In the county.
In the county. And so we sued them. And the end result of that was what we wanted to have happen was, because if you sue the governor, then the governor does these things, and then the attorney general actually yanks it out of the county and brings it to Sangamon, right?
Right, where it's home turf.
Where it's home turf. But we wanted to stay on the home turf in Grundy.
In the county, yeah.
Because I told Pastor G, I said, Pastor G, I said, if we do this, there is no judge in this county who is elected locally, right, and retained locally. There's no judge in the county that wants to walk up and down the streets of Morris and try to explain to his friends and neighbors why they can't go to church.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why what we're talking about, government starts locally, and that's another example of it. So, all right, now tell me a little bit more about your run and your vision moving forward and what you're about. So I'm going to put you on the hot seat about individual rights and how does that affect parents? Because right now we are, streaming out to a parent group here that has about almost 20,000 members in it. And it's also going to go out on other pages, which are going to be, the pages I'm admin or part of. So individual rights, can you talk on that and your position within the boundaries of your campaign? Right?
Yeah, certainly. Well, this goes back to the other situation where the current Attorney General is in fact defending the government against the people rather than representing the people in relationship to the governor or the government.
So that's moms and dads, right, representing them first.
Yeah,
okay.
To the extent that there's a variety of other lawsuits that are going on that involve the Illinois Department of Public Health, that involve the Illinois State Board of Education, and in both of those situations, as soon as you have one of these Illinois agencies and you're running into a situation where they are dragging it out and trying to run you up and down the courthouse steps, that's the Attorney General who in fact is opposing what parents want to do in terms of the response by the Department of Public Health and the response by the Board of Elections, Board of Education, you name it, as opposed to saying, no, let's sit down, these citizens are aggrieved. These citizens are aggrieved.
The statement of going up and down the courthouse steps, meaning just slow walk this thing, just drag it out, break the back of the parents,
make them spend the money, get them discouraged.
Okay, we see a lot of that. So
Yeah,
that's why I want to bring it up.
Yeah, the government is, and the Attorney General's office in representing the government is actually making these matters more expensive for parents to pursue their rights. And actually, in many instances, defending overstepping their bounds. Board of Public Health doesn't have the ability actually to put together things.
Go ahead.
There are limits on the authority of all these agencies, and these agencies are all pretending they have greater authority. But who's defending them in their pretense of greater authority is the Attorney General's office. The Attorney General's office should have the responsibility of, if somebody sues the Department of Public Health saying that they're overstepping their bounds, they shouldn't have, as a knee-jerk reaction, defend the Department of Public Health. That as a reaction, they should review the law, review the complaint of the citizens, and if in fact the complaint is legit, they should sit down with the Department of Public Health and say, no, these people are right. These people are right, and we need to cut back, and we need to come up with a situation where you're obeying the law. And these aggrieved citizens, parents, have the recourse to the courts, but they're not. They're using something that's colloquially called lawfare, right, as opposed to warfare. And they actually do these things. They're dragging the ladies of the Illinois Conservative Union up and down the courthouse steps to prove that they have the right to see to it that Illinois has great elections. You know, I mean, it's crazy.
So another question I have for you is, you know, the Attorney General we have right now, they are always painting themselves, the particular party, I'm going to pick on party right now,
yes,
as the party of the people, right? But if we sit back and we think about it, it really hasn't been the party of the people, and this pandemic really has exposed that, because, you know, the idea, well, we have to keep people safe and this and that. And I think Americans as a whole, Illinoisans for sure, but Americans as a whole, we band together and we allowed our economy to be shut down. We allowed for financial pain, hardships. We allowed for that to happen to keep our fellow Americans safe, our fellow Illinoisans safe, because Americans are good people by nature. But what wound up happening is this power is very powerful, right? Was hijacked. It was hijacked now to change policy, you know, because it's been over leveraged, and so now you have a lot of people who are completely, you know, I guess fulfill the mask and the vaccine.
And they're pretending things that. We're not going to talk about the president, but he's governing by press conference as opposed to actual legal authority. But way back in April of 2020, Pritzker issued the first of his series of, now I believe it's 21 executive declarations of disaster. At the state of the law at the time that he issued that original proclamation was that the governor's authority, and this was the only available interpretation of the law at that moment in time in history, was that the governor's authority expired in 30 days. There was no authority to issue serial declarations, and that
emergency powers
under the Illinois Emergency Act, Emergency Authorization Act, that the governor's been relying upon, and it should have expired in 30 days. And that was the there was a legal opinion that was issued by the Attorney General's office back in 2000 on that issue that interpreted the law that way. The governor didn't like that. So the Attorney General issued a new opinion, says, never mind that opinion from 2000, from the thing that we've been governed under for 21 years. And no, he can issue serial. So the Attorney General and the governor just decided...
Because that was a loophole, Dave.
No, it wasn't a loophole. They just...
Kidding.
Yeah, no. Sometimes there's loopholes.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes there's loopholes. But in this situation, it's not a loophole. They just pretended the law was different than it was. And nobody's opposing them. The legislature has the authority to oppose them. They didn't. And
because it's typically one party that's voted in by Illinoisans who don't pay attention to their legislative races.
Yeah, well, that's a.
I'm guilty.
We're gonna get there as we do things, but that's the importance. That's the importance of that office. That office rolled for the governor. A proper attorney general would have sat down with the governor and said, "Mr. Governor, you need to go to the legislature. If you go to defend this in court, I am not going to defend you because because your position on the law is wrong." And so a proper attorney general would have done that. We would not have seen what was going on. It would have gone to the legislature 20 months ago.
So you go to the legislatures to get something drafted. Then they're going to bring it up to the senators, work with the senators to try to get that, go through the House, with the Senate floor to try to make it law.
That would have been on day one of the first proclamation. They would have 30 days to go through what's necessary, how to respond.
However, as you've said to me, and I don't want to steal your thunder on this statement, the Constitution has no, there is no pandemic exception to the Constitution. Yeah, so that means our rights were never to have been infringed on, hence why they're called mandates, not laws, because of our Constitution. So it goes back to what's happening right now is those threads that hold the stripes together, everything that holds the flag together is being tested. The tensile strength of it is being tested right now because I believe the Constitution needs to be reread, not rewritten. It was, anytime this happens, when they go in there and they want to rewrite the whole Constitution, and we've had such great success as Americans because this is the first time in history that what we have, a republic, has lasted this long.
Oh, absolutely. It's the
And it's
oldest.
because of times like this is the reason why they don't last long.
Yeah.
So we're at a critical juncture as Americans.
We are at an incredibly critical juncture, but one of the things that we need to overcome this issues regarding the critical juncture is, in fact, education for people to understand what power and authority we actually have, and go ahead and exercise it. There's a lot of issues that over the next few weeks or months, perhaps you and I will cover regarding elections, the election situation. But I just want we want people to understand that they should know the jobs of each of the individuals that they're voting for, whether it's a judge, whether the difference between a congressman and a state representative. They have different duties.
Well, we're gonna expand on that as we go forward. Just so you know, we're planning on doing a series of these, and we're gonna see maybe 3 more and reset and look from there, because I believe that, and Dave and I both believe that I think if there was ever a time, now is the time for a crash course in civics.
In civics.
Moms, dads, I've stood shoulder to shoulder with many of you in those school board meetings. Not that I thought that we can get a whole lot done there, but also to help your confidence, but also to present, moral argument. That's why I spoke, because I spoke on the moral argument, and even ethical arguments that needed to happen. But what we have to do as Americans, and especially as Illinoisans, we have to start paying attention to who do we elect, and we also have to up our level of discernment for I guess because I'm a marketer at heart, right? For the marketing messaging that we hear, and is it legit or is it bullshit? I'm gonna say it the way it is. Is it bullshit? And I find, as a marketer, and the reason why I got involved is that a lot of it is just bullshit. It just is.
Well, it is. There's people that are pretending that they have authority that they don't have. And they can get away with that because of the lack of education that has been probably on purpose for a couple of generations.
Well, misinformation is powerful.
It's been on purpose for a couple of generations. But, it's important to know what a state rep does compared to what a state senator does, compared to what a congressman does, or a U.S. senator, or the attorney general, because you need to know what they do in order to evaluate their candidacy. You need to know whether or not this person has the appropriate skills and background and interest to fulfill the job that they're trying to fill. And I think it's important.
And the right heart.
Yeah, and the right heart.
And the right heart.
The right heart is probably a universal consideration. But and this has come to my attention because, and yours as well, because I've only actually just started this a couple of weeks as a campaign. But in that short period of time, there's people that have introduced me as a candidate for the United States Attorney General. I've been introduced as a candidate for State's Attorney. And each one of those is different. The U.S. Attorney General is a completely different situation than the Illinois Attorney General. And so people need to understand those differences when they're evaluating a candidate in terms of that candidate's background skills and whether they're in a situation where they can address the problems that office is meant to deal with. And so that's the kind of thing. I know you've had the same situation, right? People misintroducing the office that you're seeking.
Yeah, U.S. Congress. The main misunderstanding is the role and purpose of a U.S. congressman or woman versus the role and purpose of a state legislature, which is, in theory, kind of the same thing on a state level or on a federal level, kind of, right? If we're going to look at the hierarchy, that's the only part, the hierarchy. You have a state, you have your governor, right, which is like your president. You have your state senators, which is like your senators. And then you have your state legislatures, which is like your U.S. congressmen and women.
And there's an analogy.
Yeah, that's the best. That's one I have. However, with the U.S., what would be your best? I mean, you know the Constitution better than I do. What's the best way to describe a U.S. congressman and how it affect the moms and dads that are watching right now? And it don't come out of my mouth, so it's...
Well, certainly, there's a difference in the shared sovereignty between the states and the federal government.
And they have to have a relationship, a working relationship.
There's a working relationship that's actually defined in Article 4 of the U.S. Constitution. Is that kind of working relationship? But the federal government has what is supposed to have what they call enumerated powers that are defined in Article 1, Section 8.
What is enumerated powers?
That is, there's a list of about 28, I think, in the Article 1, Section 8. Includes the power to declare war, the power to print and regulate the value of money, the power to issue copyrights, the power to, in terms of not copyrights but rather patents. There's a specific number of authorities that are given to the federal government, and the federal government is not supposed to exercise authority outside those powers. And
so it's limited.
It's limited.
And what a congressman in layman term would kind of be like the go-between the state and the federal government on certain issues. Exactly. But in fact, Article 1 is defined. Article 1 of the of the Constitution, and the very first line says, "The legislative authority shall be vested in the Congress of the United States." And then in Article 1, Section 8, it says what that legislative authority is. State government, on the other hand, has something more general called the police power. And the police power has to do with dealing with issues of health and safety and local issues. And so and that falls under the seat of?
That's the state constitution, and it falls under state government generally. And then the division between the legislative and the executive and the judiciary is similar, but they have different authorities that they're supposed to operate.
And the attorney general would be the accountability partner in this whole thing.
The accountability partner is actually the representative of the people, and in terms of not being the representative of the government, the attorney general is supposed to make sure that the state government follows the law. And if in fact the federal government impinges upon the state's authorities as per the 10th Amendment, which one of these days we'll get to, if they impinge upon that, the attorney general's job would be to defend the sovereignty and authority of the state against the impingements of the federal government.
So if we actually had an attorney general that was actually working for the people, though in these times it would be a tough job, I admit, having COVID and health and the uncertainty at the onset, at least, of this pandemic. But now that we have data, we have information now. So a lot of these problems that the parents have been facing wouldn't have become this big, because if you actually worked for the people and you valued individual rights, many of these issues...
You would not be defending the governor's impingement on those rights, but rather you would be advising the governor that, in fact, his duty is to go to the legislature to solve these problems, where the representatives of the whole people are participants in that. The people that are responding to their constituents, the people that are hearing the issues, and so that the governor, in the first he should issue the proclamation, and on the very first day go to the legislature and say, "This is the problem we're facing as a state of Illinois. I need your assistance, your legal authority to deal with this on this level, and we have these issues in the schools." So, and then the state legislature then holds hearings. They bring in experts. They not only the issues of the mandate, they would have experts that would testify as to what damage it does to kids by wearing masks. So those kinds of things would be taken into account as the policy develops. They'd have 30 days to get that rolling. And then they would continue to work.
So if we had an attorney general that was actually valued individual rights and worked for the people, we wouldn't have a lot of the problems we have right now, because a lot of it would have been cleaned up at the AG's desk.
Would have been cleaned up and shut down back in April of 2020. But in May of 2020, the attorney general issued a new opinion and says, "Oh, whatever the government wants to do is okay." And then has proceeded to drag Senator Bailey up and down the courthouse steps, the Romanian churches on the north side of Chicago up and down the courthouse steps, a series of other folks that have challenged those orders.
People challenging school districts.
Yes.
Yeah. So let me get on this, because we're gonna wrap this up here pretty soon. There's some notes that I've taken. We're not going to get to right now, but I'm taking a couple notes. I'm going to look at the comments. Dave and I are going to talk about them when we get a little bit more time. As you understand, we're both, super busy, and trying to get to them in the next episode of Local Civics in Illinois. And what does your representative do?
This is kind of an overview today. Yeah.
So one of the books that you brought, now we're not talking about selling books. I just wanted to show you some of the books you wrote. This one right here, I like the name too. This is cool. Constitutional Sound Bites, right? So can you explain how you wrote this? Like what
Back in I'm also licensed to practice law in Florida, and I was in Florida for a period of time, and I did a radio show called Constitutionally Speaking. We did it on Saturday afternoons, and during the course of the week, there would be promos for the show called A Minute of Constitutionally Speaking, and I'd answer questions in 60 seconds like, what did Jefferson mean by all men are created equal? What's a well-regulated militia when it comes to the Second Amendment? And I collected those and added to them, and we've got 150 questions and answers about the Constitution that begins with the preamble, explains the preamble, and goes through the 10th Amendment, which is the end of the Bill of Rights. And when I got done with this one, because unfortunately nobody's going to read the Federalist Papers these days, right?
Right. Well,
they're more involved with tweets and other things, and we can say what events during the Christmas of 1776 saved the United States independence and sets the stage for Constitution. 90-word answer to what.
So this is like digestible. It's not like a long-winded. Like I don't even know where I started with. Just get to the point, David. It's one of those kind of books, right?
It's exactly one of kind of those books, and
I think a lot of parents can appreciate a book like that.
Well,
because they got kids.
Right now, my mom is 92.
Okay.
And she was one of my major editors for this.
Oh wow! Okay.
Because you can only depend on your mom to say, Dave, that's too much like a lawyer.
Yeah. There are times we talk where I'm like, Dave, you lost me, buddy. And that's not the position I'm running for. I didn't pass the bar. I didn't even.
Yeah, well, that's the time to call on mom.
Yeah, okay.
All right, mom says that's too long, and then
this one is.
Well, when I got done with this, strangely enough, I found out that there was 140 references to the Declaration of Independence, and I said I got to do something about explaining the Declaration of Independence, which, by the way. This is creating the Declaration of Independence, but by the way, they don't touch this document in education ever. Because
interesting.
Because the Declaration of Independence is in fact a revolutionary document. It explains what people call the right of revolution, and what government school is going to teach you that you have.
Government school.
Yes.
You said that on. So there was a tweet I put out, and I said perhaps it is time to abolish government-run schools. And there was a reason why I written it in such a way, because they are now not about arithmetic, reading, writing, spelling, but now they're about indoctrination for this social experiment that they're trying to do, which is they're trying to restructure our society and implement group thinking. Hence why we have these young people who share very different American values than us because of what they were taught in schools. Not all of them had taken to this, but many did, and it's because of lack of education of where we started.
And I think, maybe we're going to get to some other things. I know we're going to end up fairly soon, and I would say that almost always I give presentations on the founding documents, and I try and finish this up because so many people. Since President Obama started making it popular to say, well, that's not who we are as Americans, but he never did say who we are, right? He just kind of left it open. But on the very first day that the country started, there was a definition of who we are as Americans. And it comes from the Declaration of Independence. I think we can share this and then call it an end. We hold these truths.
We get interrupted anytime someone's called. Sorry. Yep, go ahead. We hold these truths as self-evident.
That all men are created equal. That they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. That among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed.
Now, the word men and man is not it's the left is perverted
the traditional English language dealing with gender was that when there was a general reference to humanity as a whole, they would use the masculine pronouns,
right,
or the masculine references.
But that doesn't mean that women were out of it.
It was all encompassing, and it was all encompassing when I was learning English.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
sure, yeah, right, yeah.
Even when I was learning English, it was all encompassing. The masculine gender was all encompassing.
So this means man and woman.
Absolutely.
It just, I mean, people are gonna. You have the me here. You gotta recognize me, and that gives way to group identity thinking, right? So that's why it's. I mean, if you're a female and you feel it's unfair, I mean, you're represented there. It's not the word, but you gotta have to understand you're also represented in that word.
Well, one of the things that people fail to do is try and understand the language of the times. One of the things that's explained in this book is that to actually understand these documents, you have to put in perspective what the language was in the 18th century.
But then they'll say, well, that was a different people, but they fail to understand the point is still timeless.
The point is timeless.
Right, and that's what the people who are trying to get around our Constitution because they believe in globalism, they want to pervert the words.
Oh yeah, they talk about the rich old white guys. And by the way, Jefferson was 32 when he wrote he was pretty much a millennial when he wrote the.
He was a young man, yeah.
And so there's all kinds of misrepresentations, misconceptions. There was only one rich old white guy really, and that's Ben Franklin. Franklin was rich because he invented bifocals, because he invented the lightning rod. There was all kinds. He invented the Franklin stove. He made so much money. Franklin was so rich, making so much money that in fact he put together an endowment for the Philadelphia Public Library that they are still benefiting from today, 200 and some odd years later from Franklin.
That's pretty rich.
That's pretty rich.
That's the power of compound financing. So, okay, so I took some notes and everything, and I wanted to end with this. Steve, do you celebrate Halloween?
Celebrate?
Yeah, did you dress up?
No, I didn't dress up. No, I unfortunately spent too much time with the Bears yesterday.
Oh, okay, all right. Yeah, so everyone asked me what I did.
Yeah?
I said I stayed in the house. They said, why'd you do that? I said, because I dressed up as Illinois governor. Because I was confined to the house. I was on, what do they call that with the bracelet? House arrest?
House arrest, yeah.
That's a poor joke. I'm sorry, people. But anyways, I appreciate your time in this. We're going to share this video, and we're going to do more of these where you get to meet, a candidate for Attorney General, which is Dave Shestokas. And I'll say it again, Shestokas. How many months did I have to know you to say it right? Was it about 5?
Yeah, it was a while.
It took a little while. I screwed it up.
But I've been used to that for 35 years in the courtroom.
We got to, for name branding, we got some work ahead of us. Thankfully, I was.
We'll go with Dave.
Dave,
if it gets on the ballot, let's see, Kwame, Dave. Kwame, Dave.
Yeah,
let's go with Dave.
That should be pretty easy to know who you're talking about. So we're going to touch on local civics coming up. We're going to talk about the Supreme Court seats that are available, the importance of electing the right judges. And unfortunately, we're not going to have enough time for the VA election.
We'll be better prepared to do that after it's over.
Yeah, after it's over, we're going to find out how that one went. And I think that just a handful of things I wanted to talk about. Dave, thank you so much, everyone else that came and joined us today. Tell us in the comments if you have questions, and if you'd like us to continue to keep doing these. We're going to do, like I said, 3 more, and then we'll reevaluate from there. What do you think on Mondays? Is
probably, around the same time is when we're available. So hopefully we can do that.
Put some questions in the comments. We'll both be looking at them. And if there's something you want,
there's my sister.
Oh, there she is.
Hey, Jill.
Let's see. What kind of questions you have, and we'll answer. But we're going to try to keep to the theme of explaining what the different seats, the different positions are, because this is kind of a crash course on civics. Keep doing these, please.
Thank you, Maria.
Yep, Maria, thank you. All right, everyone. God bless. Until next time, Jack Lombardi and Dave Shestokas.
Happy All Saints Day.
There you go. Yeah, I forgot about that.